Hi, everybody, and welcome to Around the World with NEC Prep Alumni. Thank you for joining us here for episode 2. My name is Rebecca Bogers, and I have the pleasure of being the Dean and Director of the NEC Preparatory School. I'm joined this afternoon by 4 fabulous alums, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. So, Margeaux, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Margeaux Maloney. I play the violin and I graduated in 2010 and I am currently living in Miami Beach, Florida, and I'm a fellow at the New World Symphony.
Great. Thanks, Margeaux. Great to have you with us. And we also have joining us, Anya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anya Wilkening. I graduated in 2012, and I am also a violinist. I'm currently pursuing a PhD in historical musicology at Columbia University in New York City.
Great. Welcome. And joining us today, I believe, from the Cape. Great. And across the ocean, we have Rosemary.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rosie Salvucci, and I'm a double bassist. I graduated from NEC Prep in 2010, and I'm currently living in Berlin, Germany, where I freelance.
Wonderful. Welcome, Rose. And then if we head around the world, we are on the West Coast with Rebecca.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Reale. I'm also a violinist. I graduated in 2011 and I'm living now in Los Angeles and I play with the LA Phil.
Wonderful. So thanks so much to each of you for joining. And I know that you guys all had some different overlaps while you were at NEC Prep and also all alumni of our NEC Prep at Walnut Hill program. So thrilled to chat a little bit today about all of your illustrious careers and also kind of think back and remember the NEC Prep experiences. So let's chat a little bit about where you are now. I know that Margeaux and Rebecca, you both had a chance to be at New World at different times, and that's such an exciting part of the career path. For those who may be less familiar with it, Margeaux, do you want to share a little bit about what New World Symphony is?
Sure. So New World is an orchestral academy based here in Miami Beach. It was co-founded by Michael Tilson Thomas, and it's an amazing program which prepares young musicians who are recent graduates of music programs to win the orchestral job or be in leadership positions around the world. And it's also a great place. They use the word laboratory. Great place to just try out new things. We're all about innovation. So, literally you could try like any kind of idea and they'll, support you 110%. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah, Rebecca, you were mentioning as well kind of that opportunity to be in that laboratory space in New World and how impactful that was. What are some of the things that you got to do there?
Yeah, we wanted to play Black Angels, which is a piece by George Crumb, which kind of depends a lot on your scenario, like your living situation and everything. I mean, it all depends so much on like how much support you have from whatever organization you're involved with. So the fact that we were all living there on campus at New World, you all live in an apartment complex together. And so to just spend that time with the group that I played it with and to have the support from New World to kind of get specific coaches just for that particular piece and to get all the different supplies and instruments that we needed. Yeah, they're just super supportive of like any idea you want to do, they'll make it happen there. So.
That's awesome. Another cool thing that Margeaux, you mentioned you've done is you've had a chance to do some teaching through New World Symphony as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
So New World has a partnership with a program down in Medellin, Colombia, the Iber Academy. And so every season, we kind of do an exchange where some fellows will go down for a week to teach and perform with the students. And then they'll send a few students to come play with us and also to have lessons. And yeah, so like literally a couple weeks before everything shut down, I had the chance to go down to Medellin for a week, and definitely like one of the most life-changing experiences just working with those kids. They're just so amazing, and also to perform alongside with their professional orchestra in Medellin too was like, it's a different style, but it was like really cool to experience that. And then, yeah, also even after the shutdown, we were one every week teaching over Zoom, and that was like, especially at the beginning of the pandemic when everything was so unsure. It was nice to have like that, thing to sort of how do I
To be
say
a
it?
part of. Yeah.
Yeah, just like something to be doing, and yeah, so
To be doing.
yeah.
Would you say that teaching has definitely become part of your career then as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't have much teaching experience before coming to New World. And I mean, our community engagement program is really strong. And I've just, like, I've done a lot of teaching over Skype and things like that. And yeah, it's just become like a really big part of what I've been doing, and definitely a lot more comfortable with it now. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, from one teaching experience to the other, Anya, I know you have kind of made it a career to go into academia, different Columbia that you're involved in, Columbia University in New York. So tell us a little bit. You have gone from a very heavy focus in performance in your earlier degrees and are now pursuing some musicology. What's that like?
Well, it's different. I think a lot about music now rather than playing it per se. And it's a great privilege, I think, to just really delve into the music that has been such a part of my life, and explore why it's important, and then have the opportunity also to teach other people why it's important. A large part of what I do at Columbia is teaching one of the core classes there called Music Humanities, and to be able to instill listening skills and these pieces that are just monumental and important, and be able to talk about them and really share them with people who might otherwise not ever come into close contact with such things is really special and fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to remember how critical it is for all of us to listen, not just to play music. Listening is something that comes into play everywhere. But you mentioned kind of, maybe first having introduction to music history in your Walnut Hill and NEC Prep experience, and realizing that there was a whole history to what was going on beyond the music. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. I think actually maybe I was the only one who really enjoyed the music history class. It was just something that, I had never thought about before. As a performer, I don't think we spend a whole lot of time thinking about the societies and the people and the institutions that really enabled the creation of the music that we play. It's sort of always in the periphery, always in the background, but it never is the forefront. And to have the opportunity to really learn about where these things came from, who was supporting their production economically and also, I guess, emotionally, that to me is fascinating and really worth delving into so that you can better understand the music itself.
Yeah, and you mentioned you're studying a very specific era as well. You have kind of specialty. How did you choose that, and what is it?
I am working on music of the 12th and 13th centuries. I am specifically interested in vernacular music, So think the troubadours and people of that ilk. I am particularly interested in musical borrowing. So what does it mean to take somebody else's tune? What does it mean to sing that, to retext it? What are the implications of borrowing, essentially? And as for how I got into it, it's sort of it was a long time coming. I think I've always been interested in old things. This is about as close to archaeology as I'm ever going to get. And I really like the smell of old books, manuscripts, just a thing, I guess. But I remember very clearly writing my first musicology paper, and just sitting in the library and thinking, oh my God, this is something that people do? Like, who knew? That's crazy. I would like to do it too. And just, learning so much about that. In terms of my really specific interests, it was a very long time in developing where I was headed. And fortunately, I had the time at Columbia to really explore a lot of different interests and different musics before ultimately sort of focusing in on this.
That's awesome. And another kind of common thread here, speaking of exploring, is that the four of you all met at NEC Prep, of course, and then Rebecca and Rosie and Anya, you guys all went off to Rice simultaneously, and I'm sure had many wonderful experiences there. And Rosie, then you decided to go off to Europe. Tell us a little bit about that decision. And I know you went to study there and had some pretty cool experiences.
Yeah, so I had always been interested in moving to Europe. My father has Italian citizenship, and when I was 18, he was able to get passports for the rest of us. So having that dual citizenship really kind of inspired me to take the next step to go abroad. Rice was also really generous with funding for study abroad during the summers. And after my junior year, I went to a masterclass in Liechtenstein where I met my teacher. And yeah, basically all of senior year was trying to figure out how to finance this move, how to start learning German, how to, figure out how to make that move easily. And I mean, it was a really big move. The German that I thought I spoke was nothing like Swiss German. And like when I got to Switzerland, it was a big move. But
having a chance to learn a lot of different cultures is certainly one of the things that I love about music and its ability to kind of create pathways and connections anywhere in the world. As you think back on your experience, is there a kind of favorite performance or a performance that stands out to you that felt really pivotal in your transition to the European space?
I think one of the most emotional performances for me was the first time I played in La Scala. Having the Italian passport, having the chance to work there and perform there, weekly. My dad was in the audience for that concert, so that was just, it really felt kind of full circle for me. I don't know. It was a really cool experience. So,
what an amazing venue. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, you also mentioned talking about an amazing European venue that you performed at actually as an NEC Prep student. What venue was that?
Yeah, the Musikverein. So when we went on tour, it was my senior year, my last year with YPO. We did a tour, European tour, and one of the places we played was the Musikverein. And to this day, I really want to go back and play again now that I'm, with a professional orchestra, so to speak. Yeah, I'd love to go back in that hall again. I just remember walking out for the dress rehearsal and just immediately having this overwhelming sense of like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, just the gold everywhere and everything. Yeah, it was a very special venue. So to this day, actually, it's one of the most memorable that I played in.
Awesome. Well, if our friends at the LA Phil are listening in, sounds like it's time to plan a tour to Vienna. But in the meantime, Rebecca, tell us a little bit what it's like on your kind of professional journey here. I know you played with the Houston Symphony before you went to LA. So just share a little bit about that part of your journey.
Yeah, after I graduated Rice, I went to New World for 1 season, and then I won a position with Houston Symphony. So it was fun to come back and have my first job be in a city that I knew, because I know moving for a job in itself can be very overwhelming, and to move to a city that I already knew and had some friends and connections was a very smooth transition. So that felt really good. And then 1 year into that, I auditioned for LA Phil, and I won a position with them. So I finished out my season in Houston. Then I moved out to LA, I think it was 2017. Yeah, and so I've been here ever since, not doing much lately, but yeah, during normal times, we're very, very busy because we have the winter season at the Disney Concert Hall and then the summer season at the Bowl. So we don't have much time off, but now I have too much time off. So,
Yes, hopefully we'll all be back to live music making soon. So since you're in LA, I'm sure all of our students are dying to know, what's it like working with Dudamel?
He's great. Yeah, I love him. I mean, every time he brings such a positive energy to the podium. I think, a lot of us, not in particular me, because I haven't really been doing it that long, but a lot of people that I play with have been doing, this for 20, 30 years. They've been playing in the orchestra, and still I think he just brings this fresh energy, and it's contagious, and everything he conducts, turns into this profound piece of music, which is a skill. And it's a blessing because it makes you appreciate even like the little things here and there. So yeah, he's great. I love him.
Wonderful. I know everyone's had a chance to work with incredible artists throughout their careers here. I'm curious, and maybe this is one, for everyone, we can kind of go around, but who are some of the favorite musicians or artists that you've had a chance to work with, either playing with or learning from over the last 10 years, or even from your NEC Prep days, either ones? Rebecca, do you want to start, since we were just chatting a little bit there?
Sure. I mean, besides Dudamel, I know we talked a little while ago. Somebody that immediately came to mind was Blumstedt, who's an older conductor, but he came last year or 2 years ago to the Phil, and it was definitely one of the most memorable weeks of music making. And also, we recently had another conductor. Her name's Natalie Stutzman, and she came, and she's a singer, and she's relatively new to conducting, but she was also, it was a very memorable performance. We did Beethoven 5, which I think going into it, everyone was like, oh, okay, Beethoven 5, it's just like doing the same thing. We played it a million times, weren't super pumped about it. And then she started the rehearsals that week, and everybody, the whole energy just shifted in the room. And yeah, so I mean, off the top of my head, those are two memorable conductors I've worked with.
That's awesome. And Margeaux, you must have had a lot of artists that you've worked with as well at New World and in other spots. Any favorites jump to mind?
Well, I mean, working with MTT has just been amazing, and Rebecca knows. I mean, he's just one of a kind, and always brings this amazing energy and knowledge. He always tells these crazy, awesome stories about his experiences. And also, I got to work with Fabio Luisi for 2 summers at Pacific Music Festival. And I mean, I adore him. He's amazing. Yeah, some of the best music making experiences I've had. So yeah, those 2 off the top of my head.
That's great. And for those who don't know, Pacific Music Festival, that's in Japan, right? And that has a kind of special significance for you as well. What was it like to go play there?
Yeah, I mean, well, my mom is from Tokyo, so I have a lot of family there still and a lot of friends, mostly her friends, but I've known them since I was born. So just to be able to play over there for 3 summers was just meant a lot, you know, because normally my family or those friends wouldn't be able to see me play live otherwise. So it really meant a lot for them to be there and experience that. So
That's awesome. Well, one of the things that I know was so impactful to each of you during your NEC Prep experiences was the opportunity to hear artists while you were here in Boston and kind of journeying from all of your prospective homes to Boston. Before we dive into that, I know that none of you were actually originally from Boston and chose to come to Walnut Hill School for the Arts, which is one of our partners, so that you could also participate in the NEC Prep program. Let's take a moment to just hear where everybody moved from and why you decided to come to Walnut Hill and NEC Prep. Rosie, shall we start with you? I think you first learned about us at another one of our friends over at the Boston University Tanglewood Institute, of which I'm also a proud alumni. But tell us a little bit about that and deciding to make the move from Texas to Boston.
Yeah, so I went to Booty 3 times, and it was just such a magical place. And the first summer I was there, I heard about the school, Walnut Hill. I was still in middle school, so it was a little early, but my second summer there, I met Larry Wolf. And I remember him telling me about Walnut Hill and encouraging me to apply. He went to the school, he spoke with the administration there, and he really he made it possible financially for me to attend the school. So yeah, I mean, meeting Larry that summer, I still remember having this conversation with him in the parking lot at BUTI, just talking about Walnut Hill. So
Great. And Larry Wolf, of course, is one of the bass players of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, also on the NEC Prep faculty. And that's one of the wonderful opportunities that created for you. It sounds like a real kind of pivotal moment to shift and be able to study with him. Are you still in touch with him?
Yeah, absolutely. We just, we were texting this morning about something different, but yeah, we FaceTimed last week. I met his new puppy, talked to his wife a bit. Yeah, so we're still very much in touch. So.
10 years later, the impact is still strong. Great. And let's see. Anya, you also had a similar experience, kind of meeting a teacher at a summer festival and making the move from Colorado.
I did, yeah. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, and I attended the Walnut Hill Summer Music Program, which at that point involved spending a few weeks at Walnut Hill on the campus in Natick, and then actually going to Paris to perform around the city there. And I saw a trip to Paris and I thought, what could be better than this? So I jumped on it. And while we were in Natick, part of the program was the master classes with NEC faculty. And I had just indeed a pivotal moment where I played for Magdalena Richter. And she was similarly the one who made it really possible for me to come to Walnut Hill. It was just, she just supported me throughout the entire process of applying, and then the sort of heart-wrenching decision to leave home. And she was just there through it all. Email, phone calls, round-the-clock support, and that continued throughout my entire time at Walnut Hill.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, I definitely feel like our faculty are the cornerstone of the music education piece, and to be able to meet that faculty member and make a strong connection and get that support can be such a critical, pivotal moment. Margeaux, you got a really special opportunity as well to come and study, and what made that decision for you? You came from Atlanta
Yes.
or Georgia?
Yeah,
Or
I'm
both?
from Atlanta.
Atlanta,
Both, yeah. Yeah, so I the summer before my sophomore year, I made a friend who was going to Interlochen at the time. And I knew about their summer program, but I didn't realize there was a boarding school. Long story short, like she kind of got the idea of boarding school in my head. And I knew at that point that I wanted to do music like as a career or try to pursue it. And so I was doing a lot of research and came across Walnut Hill. And definitely the affiliation with NEC Prep was sort of the thing that won me over. So I remember applying and then going up to Natick and like shadowing for a day at Walnut Hill. And then I also had a trial lesson with Masako Ushioda, who used to be on faculty at NEC. And yeah, I really got a great vibe from both the school and her. And yeah, then decided to move after
You
sophomore year.
can't say, no one could ever say no to Masako, such an incredible
No, yeah. And I
violin.
think, she kind of felt like a second grandma to me. Yeah, like being half Japanese and all that. So there was definitely that like immediate bond too. So yeah.
That's awesome. Another thing that you shared with me was, Rosie, you mentioned this as too. You both seem to have food as part of your lessons.
Yes. Always. And I remembered today I was coming home from the grocery store. Pho and I, that was the restaurant.
Pho and
Larry
I
always had like pad thai or a Quizno sandwich, just no matter what. I remember like he would duck into Symphony Market and be like, "Do you want a banana? Do you have enough fruit? Are they feeding you well?" And he just come out with like food. It was constant. Like so.
the lunchtime lesson.
Remember one time like Moscow gave me money and she was like, "Go grab pizza across the street." I was like, "What? Okay." Like it was like one of my first lessons after I moved there. And she would always bring like treats from the Japanese bakery by her house. She'd be like, "Did you eat?" I'd be like, no." She's like, "Okay, eat. Come on." Like it's great.
That's awesome. Rebecca, you had a similar story. You were looking at different boarding schools when Walnut Hill and the NEC experience won you over. What made you choose that?
Yeah, no, kind of like Margeaux, I knew about Interlochen and I had heard about Walnut Hill, I think just from doing some research. And my teacher, I came from Florida, from around the Sarasota area. That's where I moved from to Boston at the time. And my teacher at that time kind of said, if you want to do this for real, you should go somewhere where you can be exposed to a crazy high level and have, university conservatory experience. But my parents didn't want to move. So they were like, "You could go." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So then I auditioned both at Interlochen and Walnut Hill. And I chose Walnut Hill mostly because of the connection with NEC. And just knowing that I could be in a bigger city on the weekends, that was huge. Being able to walk to Boston Symphony Orchestra concerts, just everything there, just the exposure and experiencing living in a big city as a high schooler was pretty amazing. And I remember my first my first BSO concert was, I think it was with Rosie. And I think it was Mahler 6.
Mahler 6, yeah.
And we were sitting like right above the bass section. And I just remember.
No, I was there too.
Yeah, you were? Yeah.
Margeaux was there too.
Coming from Florida, I mean, there are good orchestras in Florida, but they don't have that same history and the same top level, orchestra, all that stuff. So yeah, I'd never been to a major professional orchestra concert before. And so that, I just remember sitting there right above the bass section as they started Mahler 6, and I was like, "Oh my God."
Very dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic.
For me, it was like, I'll never forget watching the hammer at the end. Like I'd never heard of Mahler hammer, never seen it. And then like, yeah, because from the angle we were sitting at, it was like right there. And I remember seeing, I don't know who was doing it, but like them lifting it. I was like, what is going on? That was great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. As I hear it, there was perhaps a Brahms symphony concert as well that sticks out. Rosie, do you want to mention that?
So I remember I was with Becca. I don't remember who else was there. I know it was like a group of us from Walnut Hill. We were all just like, you know, crazed because the Berlin Phil was on tour and they were playing all 4 Brahms symphonies, you know, casually in a concert as one, or they do, right? And I just remember that concert being, you know, absolutely,
It was nuts.
it was insane. Yeah. And
I remember paying like $50 for an obstructed view ticket.
yeah,
And
there is like a pole,
we
right?
were like, it can't be that bad. And we sit down and there's like a 2-foot pole like right in front of us. We were going like this the whole concert.
Yeah, I mean, despite that, we were still just like crying and like, oh my gosh, have you ever heard an orchestra sound like that? It was nuts.
So before coming to NEC Prep, it sounds like you also got tossed into just the orchestra scene in general, and both hearing Mahler on the BSO stage, having a chance to play Mahler in your own orchestras. Rosie, you mentioned BUTI and then NEC Prep really being the first chance you got to play in a full symphonic orchestra. What was that experience like for you, and how do you feel like that shaped your path?
I mean, yeah, getting to play Mahler, it was interesting actually. At BUTI we played Mahler 5, and then my first year at NEC Prep we played Mahler 5 too. So it was like, is this the only piece that big orchestras play? Like, you know, but yeah, I had listened to a lot of music growing up, and we went to the symphony in San Antonio, that's where I'm from. But yeah, I had never really had much of a chance to play, you know, music on that scale before. And as a bassist, I feel like, you know, having a really solid foundation for orchestral playing, since that's what you end up doing most of the time, from a young age is just so important. So I really do feel like, you know, I started learning these excerpts and I started having this sound concept really early on. And I think that was definitely due to the kind of music we were playing, hearing the BSO play this music all the time. That was really a very important foundation for my education, at least. So.
Great. Any other orchestra or NEC Prep memories stand out? Margeaux, what's your favorite NEC Prep memory?
You mean orchestra or just in general?
Either way, I think you mentioned you were in a chamber music group at NEC Prep as well.
Yeah, so Rebecca and I were in a string quartet together, along with Matthew Sino and Bobby Chen. And yeah, we played a whole variety of quartets. But yeah, that was, I mean, just the whole, you know, being able to get coached every weekend by Lin Chang, and just, you know, being able to dive into these pieces pretty deeply. And at an early age, you know, I've like over the years I've revisited those specific works, and I've, you know, I'm always so glad that I did them like early on, because it helps, you know, now. So yeah.
You always kind of remember the pieces you play when you're younger, right? There's that kind of impact. I mean, I have a very distinct memory of a piece that I played in youth orchestra, and it was actually Ein Heldenleben. And to be honest, I don't know if I ever played it again after that. But you know, it sticks out as a very distinctive piece. I think Rebecca, you mentioned doing a seating audition and thinking you were grateful to play that excerpt early on, and how that maybe affected your attitude towards auditions on your professional path.
Yeah, I think my first seating audition for YPO, or even to get into the prep school, because at Walnut Hill we had to take an audition, and then they were like, okay, you're in YS, you're in YPO. And I think we had to play Don Juan. The famous, super famous, like every single audition ever made, you have to play Don Juan. And I thought it was just normal, like, oh, I have to learn this, it's fine, like whatever, I'll learn it and then I'll play it and then I'll put it away and I'll be done. And then it just keeps coming back and back and like over and over again. And, I thought it was normal to learn it back then. And, talking to some of my colleagues now and just some friends I've made along the way, I was like, yeah, I had to play Don Juan in high school at an audition. And they're like, what? Like, so I feel like, it's good, it was very, very challenging at the time. And it's not probably the best Don Juan ever when I was in high school. But I'm very glad that we are thrown that repertoire, we are given a chance to get familiar with it at such a young age. And it does help having to prepare it and get it up to a certain level when you're that age, because then it comes back later in life and you feel more comfortable with it.
That's awesome. And want to add something, Margeaux?
Oh, I sometimes think about that seating audition occasionally still. Like, I remember missing the high D, of course, and the whoever was on the panel was like, oh, and then back then I was just like, okay, whatever. But now, that's like a determining factor if you pass or not, like.
Now we're on the panel going,
what a rough panel experience. Shame on that person. But anyways, Anya, what about you? A favorite NEC Prep memory or something that stands out to you as you think, besides that you were the one who enjoyed the music history class?
Yeah. Well, I was sort of thinking more along the lines like just the culture at NEC Prep. I can share a musical story as well, but one of the big memories for me is actually, and you might remember this, Rebecca, Walnut Hill prom in my senior year fell on a Saturday, and we got ready in the bathrooms outside of the rehearsal hall, and then sat for the rest of the rehearsal in our prom dresses playing. And I just have this very visceral memory of sitting there in this ginormous tulle dress, trying to keep up with the rehearsal. So that's sort of the most.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
I actually think there might be photographic evidence.
I'm almost 100% positive there is.
That's amazing. But I do think it shows kind of the incredible dedication of yourself and your, colleagues that you're surrounded by when you come to a place like NEC Prep, to be surrounded by students who are so focused on the music that they're doing, and that's, such a critical part of it. Prom's still very, very important. And I can only imagine what it was like to get ready in the bathrooms right there by Brown Hall. Those are small bathrooms.
I remember thinking it was so fun, that this was an experience that was never going to happen anywhere else. And indeed it hasn't.
I have no doubt. But you mentioned also, you took advantage, I think, of the workshop and recital program that we have as well, playing in noon. And we're doing a lot of that. I know Magdalena's a big advocate. I see Rebecca nodding along, so the memories must be coming back of that noon workshop program. Tell us a little bit about that and what you feel that opportunity was like, and learning to perform a lot.
It was really important because I came in just having horrible performance anxiety. And I remember my first audition, not quite as fondly as Rebecca and Margeaux. I remember just being petrified and just thinking that this could not go on like this. And, everyone always says that the only way to get through it is to just keep doing it. And I think it's certainly a huge factor that I had the opportunity to consistently perform. Every Saturday I was working on usually a sonata and getting to perform it. And being able to consistently work with one pianist and really build a solid foundation and feel supported, even when things went totally awry. I sort of learned it wasn't actually the end of the world that I perceived it to be. But because you got up the next weekend and you did it again, and hopefully it went a little better. And that, for me, as somebody who is was really like crippled with anxiety was a huge part in getting over it and actually being able to be a musician and enjoy what I did. You know, that was foundational, I think.
Well, it must have worked, because one of the cool things that I know you've done since is actually to host your own radio show.
Yes, yeah, I did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I sort of fell
Sound
into
like someone who has performance anxiety to me.
I sort of fell into it when I lived in Houston. Like Rebecca and Rosie, I also went to Rice. And while I was doing a master's there, a position opened up at the local NPR chapter. And so I got to intern for the classical station, and I actually had my own radio show. It was really fun. I got to interview a lot of interesting people. I talked to Christian Tetzlaff. I talked to members of Katori Ben. And just getting the opportunity to think about music and how we present music. This is a theme apparently for in my life, for other people, for non-musicians, was really important. You know, how do you distill something that is this large piece of music into a 15-second intro and a 15-second outro? What do you tell people to listen for when it's just this overwhelming amount of information that's coming at you? It was a steep learning curve, I can tell you. Like my first ones were not good. And learning how to edit things has also been really useful for me, just professionally.
That's awesome. We're back to listening, which is so important. Rebecca, you mentioned that as well, kind of listening and learning to listen in the orchestra, and thinking about your own part, and now playing, of course, in a professional orchestra. I'm sure you're listening to all the sections of the LA Phil. But what was that like at a younger age, and what has it been like more recently? I would say you've had a chance to come back and work with some YPO students again in the last couple of weeks, I think, right?
Yeah, no, that's been great. I was surprised. I mean, not surprised. I was impressed at the level of the students that played. Yeah, it's always, you never feel like you're that good when you're at that age. At least that's how I felt. It's like, oh, I'm okay. It's all right. But looking back, I mean, YPO has and had at that time that we were there, so many amazing musicians. It's just incredible to see what all of us and them will go on to do, whether in music or not, because I remember that was also a thing. It's like, oh, they're going to Columbia Juilliard, okay, whatever. They're going to Harvard NEC, yeah, that's fine, but I secretly hated them because I was like, how can you do both? But that's the thing, like you got that exposure in YPO of people who went on into the academia and then people who went on into the music, both at such a high level. I think that's pretty rare. But yeah, going back to listening, that's one thing that we spoke about recently. I wish I did more of that, looking back at my time in YPO. I think I spent a lot of time, because the music was so challenging, I spent a lot of time kind of with my eyes glued to my part and trying to nail my part. But yeah, just listening, I guess we're going into advice now, but listen more. That would be my advice.
No, that's great. Yes, Rebecca's taking over as the new host for the show. We have the same name, so it just translates through. But I love that. So what advice would you give a current NEC Prep student, either in terms of the program itself, or as if they're preparing to head down this path? What advice would you give an NEC Prep student? Anya, do you want to go next?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, take advantage of all of the things that NEC has to offer. You've heard us talk about the Sonata program there, this performance thing that you can do. You've heard about the chamber music. I hear now there's also more academic pursuits, which I encourage people to do, because look where I ended up. But really just, yeah, soak it all in. It's a time that you are exposed to so much, and you have these opportunities all in-house in one place. And that actually, as it turns out, is rare and a real privilege.
Awesome. Margeaux, do you want to add advice for current NEC Prep students?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Anya. Take advantage of everything that the prep has to offer. And also some advice that Moscow told me when I was a student. Um, Also take advantage of like what Boston has to offer. Like I mean, I know it's hard right now with COVID, but like go to museums, go to other kinds of concerts, not, I mean, obviously go to the BSO, but other types of genres of music. Um, yeah, just like take it all in, because I feel like, over the last decade, I've come to understand better like what she meant by that. Like, of course, you should know the background of the music and things, but also just like life experiences will help you with any music you're working on and perform. So, yeah, just live your life as full as you can, I guess.
Those life experiences are key. So besides how to catch the very last train back to Walnut Hill, any advice you'd like to offer current students, Rosie?
Yeah, I just say, we were talking a little bit about this yesterday. The people that you meet at NEC Prep are people who will continue to greatly impact your life, and you really should be nice to your colleagues. Like, you're gonna see these people for the rest of your career, no matter what you do. I mean, here I literally ran into somebody, like with my bass, literally ran into somebody 2 weeks ago, and I was like, what, you're here? Yeah, I mean, the amount of people who are still a part of my everyday life, even now 10 years out, like, it's incredible. And it's one of the really special things about being a musician and being in this weird little world that all of us inhabit, right? But yeah, just be kind to each other. So
That is such critical advice. A lot of YPL alums and NEC Prep alums hiding out in Berlin, Rosie?
There are. Yeah, I had mentioned we have this recording project right now with the Berlin Academy of American Music. It's a new orchestra founded by Garrett Keast. He's an American conductor. We have a CD coming out in October. Crazy soloists like Stathis Karapanos, Hen Rice, the soprano, Noah Bendix Bagley is on the CD. And there are 4 NEC Prep alum playing in this orchestra. It's a chamber orchestra. It's not very big, so it's a sizable percentage. So yeah.
That's awesome. NEC Prep alums truly are, I think, all over the world pursuing so many different paths and careers in music and beyond, and making an impact on their communities. And it's clear that the NEC Prep community has made such a strong impact on each of you. It's really wonderful to hear that. Rebecca, was there anything you wanted to add there? Take off your shoes when you run to catch the train was, I think, your advice.
Yeah, it helps when you're running through the Prudential if you take your shoes off to catch the last train. No, I mean, I think, yeah, what I was saying earlier about listening, it's very important, and it will continue to be a skill that you need to develop as you develop as a musician. But I mean, playing in youth orchestra is the perfect time to really push your listening limits. Because you can't, you're not going to get fired. So just, learn your part well, obviously, but really listen more than you're staring at your own music, and learn how those, cross orchestra connections work and who to play with when. And yeah, it's very important. So besides exploring Boston, and go to like master students recitals at NEC of studios that you look up to. Even the contemporary, what is it? The IC, what's it called there? The contemporary improvisation program. I mean, I left one of their recitals or concerts feeling like I was never going to be a good musician because they were just so crazy talented. So I mean, yeah, there's so much inspiration in Boston around NEC. So don't don't let that go to waste.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much to each of you for joining us this afternoon and for continuing to build the NEC Prep community all around the world. It's such a wonderful group to be a part of. We're so thrilled to hear your stories. And to those other NEC Prep alumni out there, if you'd like to share your story, please get in touch with us. We look forward to catching up with you and hearing about your journey and how NEC Prep has impacted you. That's it for this afternoon. We're signing off with Around the World with NEC Prep alumni. We'll see you next time.